continuing right along, let me give you a bit of background on all of our panelists for this next session. So next we have Jens Becker, who's been the Chief Information and Digital Officer of Zurich Group Germany since January 2021. His role focuses on driving the modernization of Zurich's IT and on achieving long-term resilience. Prior to joining Zurich, Jens spent more than 12 years at the multinational insurance company AXA, where he held various IT management positions in software development and IT operations. Thank you for joining us. Then we have Catalina Alhock, a senior manager in the cybersecurity and data protection business line at SIA Partners. She has more than 8 years' experience in cybersecurity and resilience programs and has worked on major worldwide cybersecurity and resilience assessments. And she brings with her a deep expertise in areas such as audit and maturity assessments, crisis simulations, wargaming, and training and awareness programs. Thank you, Karina.
Thank you.
And Philipp Amann, the Group CISO of the National Postal Service of Austria, an internationally recognized cybersecurity expert with over 20 years in fighting cybercrime and managing complex projects. With expertise spanning strategy, governance, and operations, Philipp also advises Europol, EC3, and chairs the Security Advisory Board for the EU-funded CC Driver project on cybercrime. So another reminder, we will also continue to use the Slido for this session, so please already be thinking about your questions. But to get us started, maybe Jens, I'll begin with you. Okay. How do you think we are set up in general regarding cyber defense in Europe?
Well, the question is, can you be prepared for everything? I would say when you question, are we prepared in Europe? Probably we are on the same good level like in other continents. Meaning we are also on the same weak level we are. We can maybe elaborate later on a bit that with some increasing regulations like DORA regulation, things are a little bit accelerating at the moment. So everybody's investing quite hugely this year, and I think this will help us increasing our resilience and our readiness.
Excellent. It's a pretty general question. Would either of you like to comment as well?
Yes, sure. So I believe that the right answer, the one we all expect, is that we're ready. But to be honest, I think we're not ready because everything is evolving so fast. We have new cyber threats with artificial intelligence, automation in general. It's getting more sophisticated, more scalable, more speed. And the thing is, many organizations did not invest into artificial intelligence, and now we're starting to develop also shadow artificial intelligence, not only shadow IT. So basically, we have new surface attacks at the moment, and it's getting harder for organizations that were not up to the loop to get even more, let's say, more ready to face this new kind of attacks. And now it's getting quite easy to just buy a toolbox. Cyber as a crime, just buy a toolbox. We don't need even programming skills, we don't need technical skills, and we can just launch cyber attacks in general. So I think we have many challenges upcoming regarding that.
And then for you as well, in your view, has the human factor become a more prominent focus in cybersecurity strategies over the coming year, the previous years?
For me, I think, well, it's becoming a much more important factor. I think as we heard this morning, with the advent of AI and the continuous abuse of new technologies such as AI, I think protecting the human factor or considering the human factor is becoming even, increasingly important. And I think, somebody posted recently a blog about we're experiencing the end of cute cat videos on internet. And what they meant was that currently we still see things and hear things that we believe to be true. But as we heard this morning, with deep voice and deepfakes, we're seeing technologies being abused by criminals that, will be harder to spot, which means that we as, human beings need to evolve. And it is true that sometimes it's easier to hack the human operating system than to go bypass the technical security measures. And I think there are many examples, even Stuxnet, if you can still remember Stuxnet, the initial step was that somebody had to plug in a USB stick because they had air-gapped networks. So social engineering is becoming, an even more important factor when it comes to defending our IT systems. So I think it's absolutely crucial to consider the human factor, and we as human beings need to evolve as well with, the things that we hear. And I think that was a very impressive video this morning, showing somebody who was, getting that call. Of course, that also means that maybe, the face-to-face interactions will become more important again. We will start to distrust what we see and hear. But I think, looking at the whole package, I think it's extremely important to focus on the human factor and then create that resilience in ourselves to face the upcoming challenges.
Yeah. So the next question I have is for you again, Jens. Okay. So from your perspective, what role does the human element play in Zurich's cybersecurity strategy? So how do you ensure your workforce are, we mentioned in the last panel, kind of building security culture. How are you doing that?
Yeah, well, it's very imperative that we're working on this, as Philip just mentioned. And you have the whole organization or the whole group. So you have C-level guys you should need to train. You have all the internal organization, you have external brokers, you have tight agents. So quite a lot of people to be tackled. What helped us in the last year was some cyber threat outside of our direct business. But we have seen a couple of cyber attacks, successful cyber attacks with a broker, or two brokers, with a claims handler, with a software vendor. So we discussed them within the organization once they are public and try to learn from them. For example, when you take the incident with the claims handler did maybe 15–20% of our operational claims handling. When the organization experienced what it means that this vendor, this partner is offline, and you need to cope for the 20% by yourself, and need to do the Saturday work and the night shifts, etc., to get the work done, then they understand that cyber resilience has a value. And this is now what we're trying to do and reuse when we force them to do the security training. So we have mandatory security training everybody needs to attend. We have those phishing mails and everything else. But probably if I would do them without having this very hands-on example, then it would be not that efficient. But here now they already feel the pain, which makes them more open for them. So that's helpful.
Interesting. Yeah, so these like adjacent, like, it wasn't us, but very, very nearly.
It's very close.
And affecting my day-to-day work to make it real and make it tangible. Yeah, it makes sense. So, Catalina, maybe to you next. How do you view the shift in security awareness from this concept of compliance and kind of one-off trainings into more of a continuous motion and an everyday exercise?
Yeah, sure. So I think beforehand we used to do the compliance checkbox, and everybody was just doing this one training when coming up to a company for the first day. Some companies started doing one training per year as a reminder and so on, but if you really deep dive into it, this shift is a shift we've been expecting as cybersecurity professionals for a long time. So now what we really should be focusing on, and some organizations started actually doing this, is focusing on specific kind of training with real added value to employees and more adapted to employees, where we want to have a return on investment on these topics, because we believe that employees in general are the users, and they are the first line of defense, the human firewall. So exactly, I do believe this shift is progressive. We still have lots of things to do, but it's going on the right way.
Yeah, and that's an interesting comment that you made, that us, security professionals have been anticipating this shift for years, right? Can you already see what might be the kind of third generation? Maybe it's too far in the future, but the step beyond kind of continuous awareness.
I believe it will be specific on cybersecurity professional trainings, which sometimes are forgotten. We have this side, we're always talking about users, but cybersecurity professionals are very important also. And then on the side of cybersecurity, I think users in general, I believe that we will use much more artificial intelligence included within trainings to make them more adaptive, more personalized, more real-life simulations, more new topics included, more adapted to the rank, let's say, and to the level of maturity and expertise of the different people that we actually have, because a user is not another user, and so on. So we might have more and more trainings, and these trainings would actually be every couple of months and so, and what would be really interesting is also to add an evaluation part on this training, and maybe to also add like a quick feedback and something that they can take as a takeaway on these different, I think, trainings.
Yeah, thank you. Philip, moving to you, with your advisory roles with Europol, you've seen firsthand the impact of this public-private partnership concept. How essential do you believe that kind of collaboration is for organizational readiness, particularly maybe in the public sector?
Yeah, no, I think it's absolutely essential. And I'm a little bit biased because I worked for Europol and the EC3 for, I think almost 10 years. And I was actually managing those groups. So when I say this is one of the successful examples of public-private partnership, that comes with that statement, that we were managing these groups. And it was a long journey, I have to tell you. So I've rejoined now my new role, one of these advisory groups. And there's this statement, it takes a network to defeat a network, and it takes an international network to defeat an international network. And platforms like Europol, which is law enforcement as a service, or Interpol for that matter, are absolutely critical to create that network of, law enforcement, industry, academia, to then have the best response to cybercrime. And that could be, best case scenario, a successful international investigation where you actually go after the bad guys, could be a ransomware group, could be somebody providing a service in that ecosystem, but it could be, policy advice, it could be lobbying, and I think to me it's absolutely essential to have these networks, but also to walk the talk in the sense of, I'm old enough, I've been to so many conferences, and what was the outcome? We need to have closer collaboration, and guess what? We need to share more information. But how do we actually do that? And I think that is an example where we actually have developed that as a very strict platform where companies share information, in a trusted environment. They know what that information is being used for. So, when I say it is important, I also recognize the fact that it's very difficult to get to that stage, to have that trust, to know that, what's my legal basis to share information with law enforcement, what's happening with that, can I share with a competitor, and as they say, when it comes to cybersecurity, there shouldn't be any competition. But yeah, I think this is absolutely essential. We will not be able to get out of this. We will not be able to investigate ourselves out of this. So, events like this is hugely important. We need to create that cyber resilience. Maybe to add to your point, when you talk about what's the future, we're still treating cyber as something special. So we're talking about cybercrime. I would argue, there's just crime with a digital component. But when it comes to training, we teach our children to, cross the street safely, we teach them safety and security. And I think cybersecurity should be part of it. So we need to start, in kindergarten, in schools. It should become just a normal thing that we teach everyone to become more cyber resilient.
Excellent, thank you. Jens, coming back to you as well. So on this, while we're diving into this topic of readiness in general, that often also means spending money.
Yes.
So how would you kind of assess the maturity of cybersecurity investments today? Are companies spending enough? And how would you go about assessing what is enough based on an organization's needs?
Difficult to answer. Probably you always know that you invested enough when nothing happened. And when something happened, maybe you haven't invested enough. No, just kidding. As mentioned before, I think in the last year, so looking on the German insurers, over the last 1 year, 2 years, we invested huge amounts in wide regulation, so the German BaFin regulation. So this is now replaced by DORA regulation. Again, everybody is now striking for this digital resilience. And I think, so we are often a little bit annoyed by regulation. But in this case, I would say it's really helpful because everybody is improving their digital resilience and we are doing something. So is it sufficient? I don't know. I fear a little bit with this regulation that it's a little bit too bureaucratic. So we write a lot of guidelines, write a lot of paper. At the end of the day, I discussed with my CISO here, do we really sufficient on the network layer? Do we enough in terms of network segmentation? Do we enough on firewalls? And do we enough with awareness? And probably one key takeaway of today was that I need to do more awareness with my street people, with my agents on the market in Germany, because maybe we don't have them too much in our focus. And coming from a discussion with Philip, so Philip has from post C-level to the last vendor carrying the packages in the streets. Are we really caring for the guys? Because everybody is connected, everybody has their handhelds, their mobile devices. And are they really all involved in our overall component? I don't know.
Yeah, so more of a holistic strategy,
Absolutely.
that it's everyone's responsibility, not only certain kind of parts of the organization. That's a very, very good point. Catalina, coming back to you before I maybe pivot us over to the audience questions, is with your experience in these audit and maturity assessments, what do you consider the most critical factors in determining an organization's readiness?
Yes, sure. So we have many factors, but what we should really be aware of is that when we come to audit and assess an organization, we focus at the beginning to see if the organization has a real good view and understanding of cybersecurity risk landscape. Because sometimes we're not talking about the same things, and there's really quite a gap over there. And then there's top management sponsorship in general. It's as in lead by example, as in it's not just a checkbox, as we were mentioning earlier about compliance and so on. We have resource allocation, so whether it's physical, like human resources, talent in general, whether it's financial, whether it's more related to transformation in general or to operations and so on. And we have everything related to awareness, whether it's obviously, as I mentioned earlier, for cybersecurity experts and also for, let's say, users in general. So these are the major topics we usually focus on. And if these are not checked in a kind of way, it's harder then to deep dive in general. So these are the major ones we usually focus on to begin with when we start, obviously, within an organization for GAP.
Great, thank you. Gentlemen, I saw some thinking, anything that either of you would like to add? No?
Good.
Okay, then I will move us over to the audience questions. And the first one I think is particularly exciting, possibly. So how, we're talking a lot about readiness today. The very concept of that demonstrates that we're not always ready, right? So how transparent would any of you be with successful attacks publicly?
I think once you have them, it's a good lessons learned for the whole market. So hiding, when you have been attacked, hiding them is probably a bad idea. So coming back to our 3-4 vendors last year which have been attacked. So one was very intransparent, and me as a partner, it reduced my trust. I don't want to work with this partner anymore. So once I'm hacked, probably I should also be transparent, because otherwise my customers won't trust me at all. And I'm not only insuring households and cars, I'm also insuring Catalina's clients as some cyber security protection vendor. So insuring cyber risk. So probably, yes, you need to be transparent to regain the trust and show, okay, yeah, it's nothing you need to be ashamed for. It's something everybody can happen, and then it only counts how you manage it and how you learn from it and how you demonstrate that you be stronger afterwards. I think that's the key point. Yeah, and one of our partners was very transparent. So they explained what they did. Probably it was even a learning curve for the management of the vendor. But they've been very transparent, very open, even asking us for support and help, and we send IT people to them to rebuild data center, etc. Yeah, so this is a partnership, some kind of friendship, some kind of trusted relationship, and a partner we continue to make business with.
May I just add something?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm totally aligned with Jens on this topic. I think transparency is important. Then maybe a little touch point on this. I think there's also need to be smart transparency, because attackers are working much more on behavior analysis in general. And when we are too transparent, we can give them some information. We can maybe show them or give them the impression that we are mastering a little bit too much the situation. And that might also give ideas to other attackers in general, other groups, because now we're getting more and more sophisticated. So it's rarely just one group attacking in organizations. It's multiple groups, they sell your data and so on. So it's about maybe also about smart transparency, not giving them too much information about the information system that we have, the controls that we have and so on. And maybe trust legal also and communication team to help build this communication, and not only technical, I would say, groups and team members.
If I can add to that, I think if you paraphrase, it's not a question if you get hacked, when you get hacked, and then it's all about your readiness. I think we're at that stage now where we all accept that there's cyber risks out there. There's a chance that each and every company gets hacked. And I think then the key question is, how do you deal with that? So readiness. And then, of course, the point there is also, just want to add to that, is how often do you train that? How sure are you about your processes? And we're just going through an attack with a subsidiary, and of course, you have to be transparent also, because especially if you're NIS, fall under NIS2 or NIS1, you have to, there's an obligation to report. But it's also about, having the right communication. How do you deal with that? And how do you regain trust of your customers? I think it's, when we talk about readiness, it's also about, again, walking the talk. Are you sure that your processes work? So in fact, and that's where regulation is really helpful. We're just, because of that, there's even a heightened, a broader attention by our board. So we're now going to have, in the context of NIS2, a tabletop exercise, going through that a ransomware fictitious ransomware attack. So I think being ready, accepting that as a reality, but also testing it, making sure that it works. Having your, twice a year or how often, whatever the frequency is, I think is crucial as well.
I see there's some maybe cultural paradigm that we really need to learn from each other, be some kind of transparent, so that we have exchange with our peers, partners, etc. And even within the organization, have an open learning culture to let people raise issues, that they talk to you when they see some abnormal behavior, etc. This is very often. If you don't do this, if you're very strict, not having this exchange, keep everything siloed, probably this is more risky.
Excellent. Yeah, I love that, embracing the spirit of, we'll talk about it all day today and tomorrow, right? That by the very nature, these threats will continue to evolve, right? So this openness, this transparency and sharing of learnings is critical for us to all keep up,
Absolutely.
right? Rather than these things happen in dark corners with shame. Yeah, excellent. Philip, I have another question for you. So Jens made some great points earlier about how some of these regulatory frameworks can actually be valuable in some ways in kind of driving investment forward, right? But I'm curious how your experience, particularly in a public-private collaboration context, do you see also on the flip side of that, how this could drive compliance-minded thinking and less innovation?
Truth be told, I think one of my biggest learning experiences, and I've been in that role now for close to 1.5 years, is to realize the gap between, what we write, what policy officers write and draft, and what you actually have to implement. And truth be told, in my previous role, we were often asked to provide input to NIS2 and, the EU AI Act, and, that was all fine and dandy. And I'm on the other side, the receiving end, and I have to implement, NIS2, I have to implement DORA because, we have a bank as well. We provide IT services to them. We have to implement the AI Act. We have to implement, GDPR. Obviously, we need to be compliant. Cyber Resilience Act potentially, and who knows what's in the pipeline. So I think, as you said, Jens, there's a huge potential, and I think it's going the right way to have regulation and frameworks that target, aim to collectively increase the cybersecurity baseline throughout the EU. But I think the challenge there really is to find that, that compromise, that pragmatic approach to implementing those regulations. Because I think there are many. There's no guarantee that they don't overlap, or in some instances even contradict themselves. And I think it's important. And I wish I could give this back to my old self to say, well, how do we actually narrow the gap between what we, the policy development process and what we have to do in reality? Because whoever is in charge of having to implement NIS2, for instance, and for us, it's a huge program because we have IT, OT, it's a very heterogeneous environment. It's a huge effort, and then that's just one of the things that we need to be compliant with. So I think, I don't have a solution. I think it's just, again, closer communication, collaboration. Also with the Commission, obviously, they have their consultation processes as well. You make use of them, have the exchange between industry partners to say, how do we also give feedback back to the policy people, as it were, that this is maybe not the best way to do it. Maybe you look at these things, and then at the broader picture, what are the sort of negative consequences? There's this saying that I think there was the U.S. innovates, China imitates, the EU regulates. Think about the AI Act, and there might be some truth to that. How do we don't shoot ourselves in the foot, by just becoming so strict that when it comes to innovation and doing business, we're becoming too restrictive. And I think the AI, I would see a certain risk there,
And I like this idea because I think the idea of having some regulation for digital resilience is a good one. But we all need to have this, this target in mind. So what do they intend? And when we have a discussion now internally, and we talk about 3 hours, whether the CISO belongs to the risk management or to IT, this probably won't move a needle. Let's take these 3 hours to discuss about network security or whatever we can really do to strengthen the organization. So yeah, there is regulation, there is bureaucracy. With the right focus on the aim, I think it improves us.